Hello folks. After 2.5 months, after almost 50 locations here all around the frontier of the US, it all ends here. We are in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We are in the University of Wisconsin in Milwaukee, and to be as explicit enough, we are in the American Geographical Society Library within the university. This is a whole archive of maps, atlases, globes, anything that a geography lover can need. And it is right here that I wanted to give sort of a retrospective on our whole trip. So we see a map right here of the US. All 50 states, all of the cities, topography, we see everything. And this is the blueprint for our trip around the country that we have had. So we started right here in Indianapolis, capital of Indiana, of course, and then we went through the Midwest, Illinois, Missouri, Great Plains we've reached, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas. We really went into the Wild West country. New Mexico, Arizona. We saw the deserts of the Southwest, various national parks, Utah, Colorado, Wyoming, Nebraska. We saw the badlands in this northern area, South Dakota, Montana, North Dakota. And then we have finally come to the Northwoods, Minnesota, Iowa, and now Wisconsin. And we are right here ending our long journey off. Not too far from Indianapolis, but we are right here in Milwaukee. Definitely had some great highlights on this Frontier Americana trip. And behind the scenes, there's been some low times for me. I've certainly cried on this trip. But through all the places we have visited, it's been an adventure that cannot be taken away from us. And I'm glad to have shared the memories with you all. But we are not done. We have one more location to visit, discover, and learn about. So without further ado, I introduce you to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Alright everybody, welcome to the downtown of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Oh yes, this is a very big city, the largest in Wisconsin, full of, well, obnoxious city drivers. You know the deal. Big cities, bad drivers, that's just what happens. But it's home to a great fresh mix of old and new. You see the iconic buildings of the past mixed with the skyscrapers of the modern day. We're in the middle of it all here in Milwaukee, and standing right beside the Cathedral of St. John the Evangelist. It's a good place to get a glimpse of what this city's all about. Mix of modern and yesterday's time. But we're gonna learn a lot more about Milwaukee. Yes, it's a city that's worth knowing about. This city, I guess, fits around 580,000 people, and I know that because that is the population of this city. Metro population, that's, well, a lot larger, 1.6 million. It is the largest city in Wisconsin, and its location is very interesting because it's kind of a mix between its own urban area and part of the greater Chicagoland. Chicago is right below Milwaukee, just across the border. All of those cities and towns that make up Chicagoland. It's a big mess down there, but we're kind of safe away in Milwaukee. Is it part of Chicagoland? Is it its own thing? You decide. Wow! Now that is how you build a city hall. Good job, Milwaukee. This is probably one of the best city halls I have seen on our travels. But it wasn't always like this. Before, this was a city of, well, more than 500,000 people just in the city center. It was just some bluffs along the lake. We are in southeast Wisconsin right now, and that's all about its proximity to the lake, one of the Great Lakes, Lake Michigan. Let's be honest here. We're right by Lake Michigan, and Milwaukee is at the confluence of 3 local rivers still being used today. The people who founded this place, oh yeah, they were smart enough to realize this was a great place to settle. In fact, 3 people actually tried settling their own towns, villages around this area that eventually became Milwaukee. 3 guys named Juneau, Kilburn, and Walker. And they were kind of self-centered. They named the towns after themselves: Juneau Town, Kilburn Town, and Walker's Point. And rivalries grew between these little towns, so much so that they didn't want other people to settle in the other towns. They did all they can as the leaders of their various villages to make sure that the massive migration waves would not have the people go into those rival towns. They had to settle in their town. Their own town had to be the best. But it didn't matter, because the few villages that were there consolidated later on to form Milwaukee as we know it. So, in 1846, they sort of had to all get along, as now all their little villages were consolidated into the Milwaukee we see today. And what a view it is on this river walk. You see, all the buildings align with the path of these rivers. Way to go once again for the urban development of this city. My oh my, is it beautiful. Oh my goodness, and look at what's in front of us. Milwaukee clock. What a strong showing we've been having today in this city. You know it's always a good time when we can see the clock of a location we go to. Some of you may be well familiar with the iconic association between Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and brewing. Yes, Milwaukee has a time-honored tradition and heritage of beer. Everything good for a night out. I don't regard drinking as a great thing to do all the time, but hey, when you're in Milwaukee, you might as well go about the tradition. Well, you might hear it in the distance. Something's happening. Maybe the bridge is opening up for a barge or whatever's going on, but it might be a good time to explain this. You know, later on in Milwaukee's history, the city ultimately became defined by its subsequent waves of immigration, most notably from the Germans and the Poles who flocked en masse to settle in Milwaukee. And it could be because of that Milwaukee gained its reputation with brewing. Germans loved their beer. I'm sure Poles, they love alcohol too. So all the way throughout this city you can see breweries. Not just local things, but also the remnants of the old factories, some of which are still open today. Hold on, y'all gotta see this. Even in the middle of a metropolitan area, people can still have fun on the water, like they're out in the middle of the nature. Although you might have to be accompanied by a guide or a tour group or something. Looks kind of fun to just ride down this river. Anyway, back to beer. Brewing is so iconic in Milwaukee that the baseball team in Milwaukee is called the Brewers. Out of all names, they choose the Brewers from Milwaukee. Yeah, it is that big. And so you can find a whole heritage, a living history, as you walk around the city of Milwaukee. I'm too young to drink at this moment, and I'm driving alone through the country, so it's probably a bad idea to indulge in any alcohol. Not a good idea for me. However, I might indulge in something that has the name beer in it. Milwaukee and you don't get a beer brat here, what are you doing? This is a beer brat. It's almost like a hot dog, but it's made of sausage and you can put so many toppings on it and it's delicious. Now, whether beer brats have beer, I'm not well equipped to answer that, but one thing's for sure, this does reflect the huge German heritage that is present in Milwaukee to this day. You can see in the downtown, Usinger's famous sausage. It's a huge building, tremendous influence on the area. So let's try this monster of a beer brat for ourselves, shall we? Look at that, sauerkraut on it and a pretzel bun. Can this get any more German? I mean, it's pretty messy, but it's totally worth it. A hearty meal. The Milwaukee Brat House, they will fix you up with some great brats. Now, although it may seem like we are at the foot of some European fortress with all the old brickworks and towers and all this fancy architecture, no, we're just at the Pabst Historic Brewery. Milwaukee has had, well, the biggest influence when it comes to beer in America. Companies like Miller or Schlitz, historically, would dominate the scene in American beer. But no company was as more influential to Milwaukee than Pabst. And here is where they made their iconic brews. Well, if I have not put enough emphasis to this point, there's bars everywhere here in the city. Every block there's some place to get a nice drink, a nice cold brew. Seriously, you're not gonna have any difficulty finding a good place to get something to drink, you know? It's just everywhere. It's a city that cannot be separated from its main export, beer. It just can't. We do have to deviate eventually from the talk of alcohol and beer, so let's see if we can't find another place. Well, after a long day traveling, discovering all about Milwaukee, Wisconsin, we now end our day off here at this body of water. Yeah, Milwaukee has a coast. Did you know that? Oh no, this is not an ocean. We're in the middle of the continent. No, there's no ocean here, but this is a lake, one of the Great Lakes, Lake Michigan. We visited Lake Michigan when we were in Indiana Dunes long ago, a year ago. But Lake Michigan isn't just part of Indiana, it's also part of Michigan, well, as the name suggests, and Wisconsin. Yeah, a big part of the Wisconsin coast, Lake Michigan. And as you can see, it's very popular. Boats in the distance, probably when it's warmer, people are out and about. There are beaches along this area. This is just a little park, Veterans Park, with the skyscrapers of downtown Milwaukee in the distance. And it's a nice, peaceful way to take a stroll, admire the coastline of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Right here at Veterans Park, we're not only spending our last moments in Milwaukee, Wisconsin for the day, we're also spending our last few moments of the entire Frontier Americana tour. I can't even believe it. It feels more like 2 or 3, a few at the very least trips, rather than one total. It's weird to think that we have been on the road non-stop for more than 10 weeks. It's incredible. You get exhausted after a while, but you know, it's nice to know we're finally at the end. With only 7 states to go, that's even more incomprehensible to me. Last year, when we ended this year's adventures off, I was only 20 states in, and I still had a long way to go, but we can finally see The end, very rapidly approaching. Although not for a few months, we only have a handful of states to go. Less than fingers you or I have. Yes. Well, as we end our adventures for this year and come ever closer to our goal of reaching 50 states in the US, all 50 states, it gives me an opportunity to reflect on the adventures that we have had this year. So many memories created, so many new regions, states, cultures learned about, so many experiences. And I feel humbled that we get to partake this journey, this everlasting journey, this journey that doesn't have to end. Although, you know, one trip ends, one begins. There are finite trips, but the whole idea of our adventure doesn't have to end. And that's what humbles me, because of you all who have supported me and who have continued to support me through this year. It truly means a lot to see all the support, whether it's, you know, feedback or just simply watching the video and commenting about your experiences in a location or a place or whatever. That's the stuff that really makes it all worth it. All worth it, totally. And it further incentivizes me to see the whole world and share it with you all. Just because we're nearing the end of the 50-state adventure here in America doesn't mean I'm going to end the project just because 50 states have been covered. I really want to continue this. I want to try to continue this for as long as I can, rather than it being like a little short stint of my life. I feel like I meant to do something more than just sit in an office. I feel like I'm meant to do this, whether it's just to give me insight for future adventures that don't have to do with travel, or maybe travel is going to be part of my life. I don't know. But furthermore, I just want to say thank you to all of you who have, you know, at the very least clicked on a video, appreciated the fact that there is this type of content and there is this community that is continuing to grow and grow and grow. It means so much. Last year around this time, I emphasized the fact that it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter how many subscribers or followers I have throughout this journey. However, I do want you to take a look. Below this video, you're going to see the coverage project. You're going to see X amount of subscribers. Yeah, that is the number of subscribers more than what I've ever expected this channel to blossom to. So the fact that there is such an amount of people who appreciate learning about the beauty of the world and the places to go, the things that can be learned in this world, it shows me that I am not alone on this journey. I may be the only one traveling, but I know that you all are there with me, anticipating the next location visited, the next place to come. So as much as my original goal has and continues to be to grow an archive for me years later to say, wow, what a great decision I made doing this, I've also grown to appreciate how I'm also trying to do this for you all, to give you a reason to enjoy and appreciate the world as it is. There's so much bad news in the world. But, you know, if this channel does the job of showing you all that there is some light and positivity to it, well, I am doing my job. So, this experience, these videos, is also one to be an interactive one with you all. Now, there's a lot I have yet to mention, of course. Epilogue 9. Hopefully I do a good job then of detailing you on all the things that were happening off camera throughout this trip. But if there was one way to just end this video off, it's just for me to say thank you. Thank you for all the support. And thank you all for just enjoying and appreciating life how it is. The more we disassociate from the negativity of the world that is just pushed, shoved into our systems, the better we can make the world, the more positive an impact we can bring upon the world. We don't rest though. We have a lot of work to do, 7 more states to get to, so I'll just leave it off at that. Standing in front of the beautiful Lake Michigan, off the coast of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Thankful as ever for your support. More travels to come. I will see you at the next location.